Hey guys, and welcome to Tactical Response Talks. I am Heather, and I'm here with my good friend Dakota Lobato. He owns Better Built Dogs, and I kind of realized, like, whenever I asked you to come, I don't know just a whole lot about you before you came to Camden. I know about you since you've been here, and I feel like we've been friends now for a really long time. So what I kind of wanted to start with is I know that you lived in California before you came here. Yep. Right? So what kind of inspired you to come to Tennessee in the first place?
This place.
Tactical Response.
So when I lived in California, and I don't talk about it a whole lot, there's a lot of shady shit going on in California that anybody that's in California knows. There's a lot of shady shit. It's got to the point where pretty much everybody knows there's shady shit going on in California, and it is not getting any better. I saw that shit coming a mile away. Literally, it was a decade ago when I moved. It literally was a decade last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up, had a whole lot of issues in the household. Mother was on methamphetamines, all sorts of stuff. And a lot of kids will be like, oh, I'm going to do the same shit my parents did.
Mm-hmm.
I was the exact opposite. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with any of that stuff. To the point where I was like, I want to be a narcotics officer and do all sorts of other stuff. I got super, super deep into protection. Was involved in an active shooter event in my high school. It was a whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thankfully, it was not as bad as a lot of them were or could have been.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't actually turn into anybody getting killed, but we were told shots were fired and it was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, it wasn't near as bad as it could have been. But yeah, it was a thing, which got my brain into thinking about a whole bunch of other stuff, to the point where, like, at 13 or 14 years old, I was watching James on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, when I had access to YouTube, because I didn't have access to the internet a whole lot. This was before it was fucking everywhere on Wi-Fi.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I realize I'm only 32, but that's still, that's a thing. I was watching James and a bunch of other people on YouTube. And I really, really appreciated what James said and the authenticity of the way that he presented it, which probably still to this day is a big part of why this business has been so successful.
Mm-hmm.
James lived and walked that walk that he talked.
Yeah.
So when I turned 20, the day I turned 18, I actually bought a rifle. And did a whole bunch of stuff. I'd already had a rifle from my great-grandfather, who I'm actually named after, which is why if you look on any of my legal documents, I have a hyphenated last name where my mother and my sister do not.
Oh, okay.
So I am a tribute to my great-grandfather that was actually over in World War II doing stuff with airplanes and shooting people.
Very cool, yeah.
Right. When he got back, he did a horse ranch doing American quarter horses and worked for a chemical company until he passed away. Everything that I've heard from him was very, very positive. He unfortunately passed away when I was 2, so I never really remember any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was one of the few good things about me growing up in my childhood. There are some positives there. But so always kind of had that, like, hey, I need to do defensive things and be able to do that stuff. So from 18 to 21, I was able to at least get into some classes there in California. A little bit of medical, a whole lot of rifle stuff. And then when I turned 21, I signed up for Fighting Pistol. And I took Fighting Pistol February of 2015.
Did you come here and take it, or was it a travel class?
It was travel class.
Okay.
It was in California.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in California. And I took that class. It was 2014. I took that class. And then started selling tactical equipment on the interwebs. which put me into touch with everybody else. Got very, very friendly with everybody on Facebook. And at one point, I got admitted into the SOE group. And John basically put out a post saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to do a whole bunch of stuff. I had 3 dudes quit in the last 2 weeks. That just know there's going to be some time that I'm going to have to take to put into the business, and I'm not going to be responding to a whole bunch of stuff, which to me basically was like, hey, I need help.
Right, yeah. Like, I'm low staff.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, okay. I'd already been talking to my ex-wife about moving, and we were very, very specific about where we wanted to go, which was basically Tennessee, Texas, or Florida. The only reason that Florida was even on the radar is because I was talking with Chase, who was currently working at Century Arms at the time. And I was totally down to do that. But I wanted to work in the gun industry.
Right.
Well, because that thing with John popped up, I was like, all right, we were literally talking about this last night. Now this pops up. I feel like I need to go. So I did. I messaged John that night, said, hey, I can be there Monday morning. And I saw that he had seen the message, but he did not respond.
Yeah.
And on a wild leap of faith, I loaded up into the tiny little SUV that we had with all of my guns and a couple of little stuff that I might need in the case of an emergency. And I drove out here without any promise of a job, without any other communication. I had some other guys that I've been talking to that were keeping tabs on me. And all of them are great people. But still talk to a couple of them. Unfortunately, I don't talk to near as many of them as I wish I did. At least not often anymore. But loaded up, came out here, and I was here Monday morning. I showed up, shook John's hand, had a brief talk, and I got to shipping. And I worked for SOE for a little over 3.5 years, and then stepped away from that and worked for Walmart for the last 5, which was what I was doing before. But it was a lot more money because I was in a manager position, and honestly, a lot less hours.
Right. Yeah.
In the middle of that, after doing a whole lot of therapy and things that I needed, because I'm 100% not a perfect person in any way, shape, or form.
Right. I don't think anybody is, so that's okay.
I've done a lot of stupid shit. And started doing a whole lot of therapy, and I got recommended that I should probably consider getting a service dog.
Okay.
Which is what leads into the dog training.
Yeah, absolutely.
After that recommendation, I was like, okay, how does this work? And they were like, you probably need a service dog for like some of the stuff that's going on. They can help you with X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, but how does it work? And they're like, well, the first place you start is spending 20 to 25 grand on a dog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, I can't do that. The good news is the ADA does not require you to have somebody train a dog for you professionally.
Okay, that's cool.
You can train your own service dog. There is no such thing, as far as the ADA is concerned, as a registry for service dogs. So anybody that says, I've got a certified service dog, they're fucking lying.
See, I didn't know that.
I know most people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go on the ADA.gov and go on their frequently asked questions, there is a whole lot of information there.
Okay.
That is a whole lot of common misconception. So, for example, service dogs don't have to wear a vest.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, anytime anybody has ever told me to put a vest on my dog, I've told them to fuck off.
So I guess my question is, are there any actual requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So they have to be non-aggressive,
Okay.
which means they cannot be actively being aggressive towards another animal or another person.
Okay.
There are some specific things that can be separated from that. So, like, for example, all of the dogs that we have done some form of bite work.
Mm-hmm.
But just like you've seen in any of the other events that we have done or anything that we've done here, anytime I bring a dog in here, they're happy-go-lucky, fucking love everybody.
Yeah.
Like, you want to pet the dog, it's going to be fine. If a kid comes up and grabs that dog by the ear, while the kid should not do that, that's a very asshole thing for the kid to do.
Yeah.
The dog is just not going to immediately go and try to bite their face off.
Right.
But our dogs just love doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is their favorite thing, even if they're a service dog. They have so much fun doing that thing, but they don't default as aggressive. So they cannot be aggressive. And in the event that if we had a service dog that bit somebody, they would immediately not be able to be a service dog anymore. Like,
right.
Immediate, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be retired. They have to be housebroken, so they can't pee or poop in people's facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if somebody else went and took a crap on your floor, you'd be pretty upset.
Right. Yeah.
But and then they have to be task trained.
Okay.
So they have to be able to do a task that helps the person live their life normally.
Okay.
So, for example, if you were a diabetic,
mm-hmm.
they can determine if your blood sugar is too high or too low and alert you to that. They can do things like let you know, hey, you need to take medicine. Or in the case of, even though a lot of people are like, that's stupid, that's not something that's allowed, psychiatric service dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Doing things like deep tissue therapy when somebody's going into an anxiety attack and kind of being like a blanket to press in on them to reduce or stop entirely an anxiety attack. It's just an example. And I use that example specifically because it's on that frequently asked questions sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody has questions on that, you should go look at that. But I was like, fuck, I can't afford 20 to 25 grand.
Yeah, no. So it's kind of like one of those things that came up out of necessity.
Yeah. And so I was like, fuck, okay. And at the time, I wasn't telling people about it. Like,
yeah,
I'm a very private person.
mm-hmm.
And I, like, up until this interview, I don't think that I've ever specifically told somebody, like, no, there was an active shooter event at my school.
Right, yeah.
Like, I don't tell a lot of people about that kind of stuff. And I didn't tell anybody about that at any time, even like people that I was actively doing jujitsu with at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Though jujitsu actually helped a lot. But one of my guys in jujitsu was like, hey, my dog just had a bunch of puppies and I need to get rid of them. I'm like, cool, let's see what I can do. And that's Fiona.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
That's where Fiona came from. So she was actually an accidental litter with a working line female and a adjacent German Shepherd male. That breeding should not have happened. Unfortunately, Fiona is a genetic dumpster fire. But it turns out I'm really fucking good at this.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where everybody that saw my dog was like, where did you get your dog trained? Like, hi, it's me.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, would you train my dog? I'm like, fuck no.
Yeah.
I don't have the time for that bullshit.
Yeah. Like,
Fuck
I got
no.
other shit going on.
And it got to the point where I probably shouldn't have been, but I got annoyed with how often I got that question.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going, yeah, I'll train your dog. Give me $700.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh, no. I was like, perfect. That was exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then one day I was like, all right, give me $700. And they were like, deal. And I was like, fuck.
Oh, no. Yeah. And it's like, now I have to.
Now I just got myself into some shit. What the fuck did I just do? But it turns out I'm really fucking good at it.
Yeah.
I've done a whole lot of seminars with people like Michael Nesbitt, Carlos Ramirez, Justin Rigney, Josh Kirby. Those are the big names that most people, if they were in the dog industry, would know. I'm getting ready to go do some. I would really, really like to, and he said that I could do this. Go and spend some time with Bebo Santana in Knoxville. He's prior military and also was a canine handler for his local sheriff's department for a little while. One of the best breeders of Malinois in the country.
Very cool.
His mom started breeding dogs and did a whole bunch of horse stuff in Puerto Rico. And they do some of the best Mals in the country. If I was going to get a Malinois, which I'm not right now, but if I was going to get a Malinois, that's who I would get it from.
Okay.
But I personally prefer German Shepherds.
Yeah. So why would you prefer German Shepherds over the Malinois? Because I don't know anything about like dogs and their genetics and all that. So what makes the German Shepherd, in your opinion, better than the Malinois?
It's better for my lifestyle.
Okay.
And I like being able to watch a dog think.
Okay.
So like when I tell a dog to do something and they have no idea what the hell I'm telling them to do,
Mm-hmm.
I can see the wheels turning in their head as they're trying to figure it out. A Malinois is like, you said to do something, cool. I'm going to do fucking everything.
Okay. Yeah.
They're crackheads.
Okay.
They're very neurotic. They do tend to be biddable. They want to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're very pattern driven.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a crap ton of energy and drive to the point where they do not have a whole lot of self-preservation.
Okay. Yeah.
It is not uncommon for them to just throw themselves into situations that they should not be involved in at all, including like jumping off bridges and like
Oh no.
out of second and third story windows and shit. Like they're really cool dogs.
Yeah.
And like if you know how to handle them,
Mm-hmm.
they're amazing. Amazing. However, that's not most people.
Yeah.
Which is why, please, if you have not had an experience with those dogs, or at least a lot of experience with working dogs prior, please don't get a Malinois.
Yeah.
Please don't. I know that they are super socially, amazing right now. You see them all over fucking TikTok, Instagram. They're in movies. They had one in Fallout, which is unfortunately not the right dog to put in there. Because dog meat's supposed to be a German Shepherd. If you want to fight me about it, we'll fight about it later. They're super cool dogs. They really, really are. But they are not for the vast majority of people.
Isn't that whenever I'm in some of the homesteading groups, isn't that what a lot of the people get for like protecting their livestock?
Mm-mm.
No?
No. No. They are not a livestock guardian breed.
Okay.
They are not an LGD.
Okay. Because I feel like I'm thinking because I feel like some of them think that's what they're supposed to be, because I swear I've seen some of them say like they had a Malinois, and I think that they just probably didn't know.
Unfortunately, a lot of people are dog-tarded.
Yeah, I probably am too, so it's fine.
I know that's okay. That's okay. The thing with those dogs is if you just let them out to do stuff, they will self-satisfy like crazy.
Okay.
So like if they have not been worked, they're going to find something to do.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like the 10-year-old boy that you left out in your garage with absolutely zero supervision for 6 hours.
Okay, yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah. There are going to be shenanigans.
Yeah.
Where typically a German Shepherd does not have as much energy, does not have quite as much drive.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is part of the reason they are able to think more.
Mm-hmm.
They are not as fast. They are not as flashy typically.
Mm-hmm.
They can be pretty fast and flashy, but they're not typically as fast and flashy. And like all of our dogs, I could go, hey, go lay down. And they'll lay down. A Malinois, if you don't have them like specifically trained of like, no, that's your fucking job.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you have to keep your brain squared away. We tell them to sit down, and in about 30 seconds, kind of like the little dog, fucking everywhere. The difference is it'd be jumping up on tables, fucking going through shelving, like trying to drag plate carriers and shit out, like everywhere.
Yeah.
Especially if it wasn't really well trained, which they can be really well trained. They are really cool dogs, but they are not for that.
Right. Okay.
They should be handled closely to people.
Right. That makes sense.
But because they are smaller, they are shorter haired, and they have that lack of self-preservation to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. It's part of the reason that special forces and law enforcement are using them a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Our special forces primarily have all gone away from German Shepherds at this point.
Oh, wow.
Where that used to be like, as a kid, it was like, German Shepherd's the thing. Mm-hmm. They're not as much anymore. Also, to be fair, the breeders that have been breeding these dogs have fucking ruined what they used to be.
Yeah.
There are some good breeders in the U.S. There are still some good breeders in Europe, but like most of your German Shepherds now that are coming out of like the AKC, unless you know what you're getting, mm-hmm. are super nervous. They have drive, but they don't know what to do with it. Okay. And they have very little courage.
That's kind of sad. Right. I mean, that's so sad.
It's part of the reason that I make so much money training dogs right now.
Right, yeah.
Is because of all of those dogs like that. Mm-hmm. They have to have training. Like, you have to get them to a point where they can live life. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they actually become dangerous.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, if you have a dog that is fearful of everything around it, mm-hmm. you very heavily increase the chance of you or somebody you care about getting bit. Yeah. For real, accidentally. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very purposeful on that dog's point, but it's because they're scared.
Right, yeah.
It's because they're super nervous. Like, well, I mean, we take our dogs out to the range, and who I get my dogs from the vast majority of the time, they'd never been around a whole lot of gunfire until we take them out to the range here. Mm-hmm. And they don't even flinch. Yeah. Like, it's just another thing. Yeah. Like, they'll be like, oh, okay. That's what's going on. Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Back to the thing. But I could take the vast majority, and this is just dogs in general, out there, and they are literally going to be pissing and shitting themselves trying to get away from it. Right. And that's a problem. Because people don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just putting dogs together. It's like, oh, I like that one, and I can put them with that one, and we're going to get babies. Yeah. You are, but you have no idea what the hell you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give some random person on the corner a Glock and be like, hey, go make this.
Yeah.
You're probably going to end up with him coming back with like 3 fingers and a freaking slide in their eye with a whole bunch of aluminum powder. That was probably a really, really bad explanation, but whatever.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, though. Like, I don't know a lot about breeding, but in my head, like, whenever I took high school biology, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know how genetics worked with that, you know? And so you look for specific traits, I assume,
Yep.
and you want to take the best traits from both sides, and that's what you would want to breed, correct? Like that.
Yeah.
Like, I know it has to be more complicated than that, I'm sure, but in my head, that's like a very baseline.
It is. It's not far off, but it's like, okay, so if I'm taking this dog and this dog, and I'm putting them together. If you learned your Punnett squares in biology,
mm-hmm.
one allele, you have 4 different possibilities from that allele.
Right, yeah.
Right? And there are thousands of alleles.
Yeah.
So, like...
Yeah, I've only ever messed with, like, 4.
Right. And now we're messing with 1,000.
Yeah.
We have to try to figure out what are we getting out of this breeding. So if I want a dog that is confident, stable, so doesn't have a really, really thin nerve. So, for example, somebody were to shoot a gun in there,
mm-hmm.
Them start freaking out like, what the hell just happened? Instead of just like, hey, what is that? Are we good? We're good? Cool.
Right.
And move on. Their bite, when I'm talking about protection dogs, is genetic.
Mm-hmm. So
whether they're just wanting to like grab a little bit of skin and like pull, or if they're just doing nip stuff like healers do,
mm-hmm.
What I want a dog to do is completely take everything that they can and smash down on it. I don't want to breed a blue heeler or a red heeler to a German Shepherd to get that.
Right, yeah.
There's not a good chance of that happening all the time. I might get some, but not all of them.
Right.
So I want to get as close to what I want out of them with both parents, and there are still going to be some washouts.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, no, it seems pretty complicated.
And I am a fucking baby in my understanding of all that stuff compared to a lot of people.
Right.
Please let the professionals do their job.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you're going to get to pay me money. You're going to pay for it one way or the other.
Yeah. And I'd probably have to pay you more money because it'll take longer.
Depending on what it is.
Yeah. So I did want to ask, I know that you said that you got into it. Basically, you went to therapy. They're like, you probably need a dog. And it was kind of out of a general need for it, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you decided that you were going to do this, did you start with books? Did you start with, I'm going to pay money and go to like a seminar, videos? Like what was all of it?
All of it. So, excuse me. I'm a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
I get nerdy about anything that I fucking hyperfixate on.
Yeah.
So like we were talking about bees.
Mm-hmm.
For the past 2 years on and off, I have hyperfixated on bees. I'm like, I wanted to make mead. I learned how to make mead. I learned how to make really good mead, which is honey wine for those that don't know. It's fantastic. I was like, we can totally just fucking get bees and get free honey theoretically. That's theoretically was not accurate, but
yeah.
Well, we can totally do that thing. I was like, yeah, cool. So I hyperfixated on bees. And then I'd get off of it for a little while, and I hyperfixate on it again, get off of it for a little while. And for probably the last 2 months, I've been going in and through that again, doing like video courses and like specifically with people that do this really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the dog training as a kid, I'd actually tried to learn how to train my grandma's chihuahuas with a book from the library and got mild amount of success as
That's funny.
as a 9-year-old. But it's a lot of everything. From watching people who do this shit for real on YouTube, like James did, right? To going and actually getting training, like I did coming here, and you should come here. To reading everything that I fucking could on it while my ADHD was fixated on it.
Yeah. Had to take it in while you could,
right,
before it shifted.
Right. I am clearly mentally built more like a Malinois. I got to have some balance. That's why I like the German Shepherds. But it's everything.
Yeah.
I will hyperfixate on it. I will take it absolutely as much information in on it as I can.
Right. Yeah.
And then because my learning style is almost 50-50 visual and auditory. For those of you who don't know, there's 3 types of learning styles. Typically, it's visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, which means hands-on. And everybody's a little bit of all 3 of those, but typically leans more towards one or the other. And I'm a weirdo, and I'm about 50-50 between 2. I figured that'd probably be helpful for the audio listeners, especially.
Yeah.
But I will get everything that I can, and then I will get hands-on. And as soon as I start getting hands-on, I learn quickly and put dots together really fast.
Right.
And it turned out I was really fucking good at it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I have some other stuff on here I was wanting to ask you. Some of these will be a little bit quicker and more brief.
Okay.
But for instance, I had what are some of your favorite parts of working with dogs, and what are some of your least favorite parts of working with the dogs?
My least favorite part of working with the dogs is people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I very, very much prefer dogs than people. Like, I like my people. Like, I like Heather. I like all the people here at Tactical Response. They're great. Amazing human beings. Salt of the earth. Fucking awesome. I can spend all day with them and it's fine. But most people exhaust me.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely see that. We're really lucky. Like, James weeded out a lot of people, and people watch our videos. And so if they don't, I feel like a lot of people come here whenever they watch us and they see our personalities and they're like, okay, we can jam with them, and they come here. So we're really lucky for that, because I feel like some of those are already weeded out. But whenever we do get the ones that, are not our people,
they don't last long.
No, and it is exhausting. And you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's not near as much fun.
Yeah. But the hardest part is the people. The hardest part is teaching the people how to train their dog and keep consistency with what is going on.
Yeah.
Because most people are not super consistent.
Yeah.
Which poses a problem. It's probably why they're in the situation they're in with having to give me a call anyway.
Right.
Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
Yeah. And that's the definition of insanity.
Right.
Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome.
So when I say, hey, do this thing in this way, 10 minutes twice a day, total of 20 minutes, you can have a great trained dog.
Right, yeah.
Over the course of like 6 weeks.
That actually, I am kind of blown away that it only takes 20 minutes a day. Just FYI, I figured it would take way more than that.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
If you do it well.
Right, yeah.
It doesn't. But getting them to do that, and to do that consistently,
yeah,
is the hardest part of it. And then you have a whole bunch of other stuff like, I don't want to use a prong collar. I don't want to use an e-collar or a shock collar. I'm not going to do this thing. I don't want to correct it. I want it to be only positive.
Yeah. I guess you say that and I'm like, that totally makes sense. People come here and they'll pay you to tell you how they want to do things.
Right.
And it's just like, you're giving me the money to show you. I clearly know more about this topic.
It's like, for those of you who have been here, when Jay is like, so that's one way of doing it, but we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
And to a degree, like a lot of that stuff is not bad. We teach behavior through reinforcement,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is positive or negative reinforcement. And you make less common the behaviors that you don't want to have happen through punishment, whether it is positive punishment or negative punishment. And that is an oversimplification. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes
Mm-hmm.
into that. But if you don't know how to communicate to the dog in black and white,
Mm-hmm.
because they are very black and white creatures, then, or at least they really, really like black and white, like, hey, you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this,
Mm-hmm.
then everything else gets muddy and they get really fucking confused.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be the same thing as if I was like, hey, go over there, grab that thing, no, put that thing down, oh no, come over here too, but go back over there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're getting from most people. So you have to be able to communicate to them, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. Do it again. Great. Predictable behavior. They're looking for their advantage
Right.
of whatever it is that they are trying to achieve, whether it is food, pack status, not being uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it could be a lot of different things that they're looking for, but they're looking for their advantage, just like people
Right. Yeah.
to a certain degree. But the dog also will never lie to you.
Yeah.
People will, but dogs won't.
Yeah. That's fair.
Which is also part of the reason that people are the hardest part of this job. Because if you don't do that 20 minutes a day,
Mm-hmm.
and we come back next week, I can tell.
Yeah.
Because there's been zero movement forward.
Yeah.
It may have gotten worse, or there might be the slightest amount because you did it once or twice.
Right.
But the people that do it exactly like I tell them to do, like they paid me to tell them to do,
Yeah.
and we come back next week, and it's a completely different dog.
Yeah.
They're like, holy shit. My reviews on Google say this, by the way. Like, yeah, within 1 or 2 sessions, your dog can be a completely different dog.
That's awesome.
With you just understanding how to clearly communicate to them and then following through with it.
Right.
But a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
And those are the people that I fire.
Yeah. You have to fire customers sometimes.
We will get to the end of our training sessions and they'll be like, hey, when do you want to get up again? I'm like, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry that we have to come to this, but I don't.
Yeah. Well, your time is valuable. And I mean, I know that they're paying you for it, but if it's just going to be a pain in the ass and you're not going to move forward with it and you're going to have to argue, it's just not worth it.
For me, it really bothers me because I know that dog can have such a better life and you're not willing to put in the time to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm literally wasting my time that I could be putting that time into another dog.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. That's a pretty bad part of the job.
Yeah.
Well, what about the best part of the job?
Best part of the job is the tongue wags.
Yeah.
They're just in there.
Their tongues are out. Yeah.
Yeah. The best part of the dog is seeing, in particular, the dogs and people coming together and doing cool shit.
Yeah.
Like, for example, my girlfriend Tasha
Mhm.
and Monarch got their obedience certificates this weekend
Very
from the
cool.
Working Dogs Association.
Yeah.
They got their family obedience title, which is dope. And even though prior to it, she was losing her mind, I was not surprised.
Yeah.
Not surprised at all because of how much time went into that dog and the bond between them.
Yeah.
And like, it's to the point now where she can send that dog anywhere and then call it back exactly how she wants to.
Yeah.
Which is perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Like that's what we want.
That's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And I want that for everybody. I just wish everybody wanted it for themselves and their dogs.
Yeah. No, I get that. So we've talked a lot about the different dogs, and earlier we talked about genetics and stuff like that. Can you go over a couple of myths? Like, for instance, some people will be like, well, my dog is too old. Like, there's no way that, they could learn this new thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that one up because that is this particular myth that annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah, they're like, can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing.
Can Granny not learn how to get on Facebook?
Yeah.
She's there.
I know I taught my grandma how.
Your dog's never too old.
Yeah.
They may not be physically capable to be able to do certain things at an advanced stage in life, but they can at least learn basic obedience. I don't care what the dog is.
Yeah.
And no matter the breed, age, or size, they can learn basic obedience if you're willing to put in the time for it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I don't give a shit if you got a fucking chihuahua.
Yeah. Which are notorious for being mean and hateful.
I don't care if you got a husky. I don't care if you got a Great Pyrenees. I don't care if you got a Turkish Kangal. I don't care if you have some random fucking conglomeration of bullshit.
Yeah.
The dog can learn basic obedience if you know how to train them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to clearly communicate what you want and then positively reinforce that behavior and then punish bad behaviors.
Yeah.
You can get the dog that you want that fits perfectly for you and your family if you're willing to put in the time. Doesn't matter breed, age, or size.
Yeah.
Another very common myth is people think that their dog will protect them.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Like, absolutely, people think that their dog will protect them.
Yeah.
And they have zero fucking training to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be some dogs that will. Like, don't get me wrong. There are examples of that. Just like there are examples of untrained people protecting themselves and winning.
Mm-hmm.
But if I go hand my 13-year-old a Glock and go, all right, have fun.
Yeah, probably not going to go well.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
And all of our dogs are essentially 3-year-olds as far as their cognitive capacity with knives in their mouth.
Yeah.
So when my German Shepherd, if it was untrained, starts becoming somewhat unhinged and acting what people perceive as aggressive, it is suddenly a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
Than the little prancy, happy-feeted little German Shepherd that most of the time people see hanging out around us. Yeah. But the interesting part about that is there's completely a double standard between large dogs and small dogs, because if a Chihuahua did the exact same shit as that German Shepherd that is nervous, people are like, oh my God, it's so cute, because they don't perceive it as a threat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So little dogs get away with a lot of shit that big dogs don't.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see that all the time.
All the fucking time. Yeah. But back to the protection thing. Wild dogs are somewhat a pack animal, or at least they descended from pack animals.
Mm-hmm.
They also are not super protective of people in particular, unless they are viewing that person as a resource, which can be positive in that particular aspect, but is also counterintuitive in a lot of cases. We call it resource guarding.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of dogs don't do that. There are some that do that, but the vast majority don't. And if I were to come and try to murder you in your home, almost every person's dog watching this would run scared.
Yeah.
And if you would like me to prove it to you, I will put on the bite suit and I will come invade your home with your consent.
I feel like my dog would honestly probably roll over and ask for belly rubs. Before they got to my room, they would walk in and they would roll over and be like, pet my belly, please. And it would be like, thanks so much.
If you want a dog that is going to protect you, you need to get one that is to have the highest likelihood of success, because even law enforcement military dogs, being specifically trained for that purpose, sometimes will not bite.
Yeah.
Like that first bite is the biggest thing. If you want the highest chance of success, you get a dog that is bred for that thing. So their mother and father are both doing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you train them to do that thing.
Yeah.
If you do not train them to do it, they might get lucky.
Yeah.
They also very likely won't. Because just like people, they will raise to the level of training that they've mastered.
Yeah.
Which in that case is fucking nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. Like I said, belly rubs. Because that's what mine's been trained to do, is roll over and give love.
It's like, hey, we're going to go do NASCAR. And we're going to go put this person that has never driven a car in that car before.
Yeah.
And expect them to win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not going to work.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. Might get lucky. Probably not. Yeah, so if you want your dog to protect you, do that thing. Also, get just like with firearms training, do so with a competent professional, please.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of sweet baby Jesus, do so with a competent professional.
So, with you saying that, I know that earlier we talked about the ADA, right? And how you didn't necessarily have to go, like there's not some registry or anything. So how can they weed out like the good ones from the bad ones? Is there anything, like any sign or indicator that they should look for when they're looking for a dog trainer and knowing that they're not getting some, someone that doesn't know what they're doing?
So first thing is look to see what they're putting out.
Okay.
So while I will caveat this and say that there are social media trainers that the only thing they can do is post cool, flashy videos on the internet, you get the same thing in the gun industry.
Yeah.
Look to see what they're putting out. What is the quality of their work? Are they actually working with dogs?
Okay.
Can their dog do that thing? Have they put multiple dogs out that are able to do that thing? Whatever it is. Are they working with people that can do that thing? So like with protection work, we have to have multiple people that are able to work with that dog.
Mm-hmm.
Because the dog can get really, really comfortable on me and I can teach that dog basic fundamentals, but it increases the likelihood that they won't engage to other people if they've not been on other people.
Right. Okay.
And then read the reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Like, quite frankly, I don't have near as many reviews as I should.
Right. Yeah.
But I also don't usually ask for them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that do. I probably should more.
Mm-hmm.
I would be ranked a lot higher on the Googles if that was the case. But like, if they're not able to do with their dog or another client's dog, and you're not able to see that, what you want your dog to do, then I probably wouldn't take him to that person.
Right, yeah.
Like, I'm not training hunting dogs.
Right.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
If you want off-leash obedience and on-leash obedience and protection work, psychiatric service work. Like, that's what my dogs do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to do.
So there's like almost niches within the.
There is.
Yeah. And so kind of like, again, I'm equating it or comparing it to the gun industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like we do like martial gun handling. Our whole focus is gun fighting. Over here at that school, it might be, 3-gun stuff. Like you're going to learn, like we're going to have, it's like competition shooting. And so there's different niches here and there's different ones there as well, right? And you want to find one that's going to match up with what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
Like if you're wanting to, get the timer and, have the stuff that they do. I've never done those competitions, but you wouldn't want to come here, right?
You're not going to learn quad loads at Tactical Response. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And
it's really cool, but you're not going to learn that here.
So if they wanted a hunting dog to go and, like after they shoot a deer, like, hey, you need to go track it or whatever else, they wouldn't come to you. They would find somebody that specifically would be doing that kind of thing.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And there are some really, really good – there are 100% people way better than I am at this. And I'm trying to learn from those people.
Yeah.
But there are some really, really good people across the country that do what I do or similar. A lot of people don't do as much off-leash stuff as I do. Mm-hmm. There are not a ton of really, really, really good protection trainers. And if all you want to do is like pet obedience, there are tons of those people all across the country.
Right.
That are really, really good at it.
Okay.
Really, really good at it. To be able to do everything inside the house.
Yeah.
And like basic stuff on a leash.
Okay.
It's not hard to get to that point. That's why I said we can get a dog there within 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like with the owner training the dog, not just with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can get the dog to do pretty much everything at a basic level without a ton of proofing in 3 weeks.
So let's say that, like, because you said that that's what's the most common. If somebody's interested in that kind of thing, can you go over kind of what they should expect once they get in touch with you? Like, what would that, I guess, kind of look like? Because I've never done professional, like, I've never taken my dogs to be professionally trained. Mm-hmm. And so, like, kind of how long are they with you? How much work are they doing at home? And kind of what does that look like overall, I guess?
So depending on what we're doing, because I do offer Zoom training, I will caveat that and say if it is behavior modification or anything with active aggression, we're not doing that on Zoom because there's so much stuff going on that I can't see that could be a key factor in why that is happening, that I'm not doing that.
Okay.
That is going to very possibly get somebody hurt. Mm-hmm. But if you want basic obedience – if you want to learn how to train service tasks and that kind of stuff, I can teach people that on Zoom.
Okay.
But typically a session looks, if it's an hour-long in-person session, I prefer the in-persons to be about an hour long. It's about 20 minutes of work with the dog, 20 minutes of putting the dog up and us having a conversation about what just happened. In some cases, me bringing out one of my dogs and going, this is what we're looking for. Now you practice it so that your dog is getting a better picture the next time they come out. And then the last 20 minutes of working that dog again. Usually by the end of that session, the dog's brain is fried.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Fried.
Yeah.
Anything more than that, and it would be counterproductive. Mm-hmm. But that's the easiest way for me to get as much out of you seeing as many reps and doing as much as you can in as short a period of time as we can and get a good base set for you to do the homework, which is 20 minutes a day broken into 2 10-minute sessions at a minimum every day for the next week.
Okay. So then in person is once a week with you?
Ideally, yes.
Yeah. And then the rest they do at home?
Yeah. In person is ideally about once a week. There are some cases where like it'll be okay for a couple more weeks. If you've got something going up, we'll work around it. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But to get through the program of getting the dog to understand sitting, laying down, going to a place, and heeling next to the owner
Mm-hmm.
typically takes about 6 weeks.
Okay. That's not a terrible. I mean, I don't feel like that's a terrible timeline.
No. And that's all on leash.
Yeah.
Now, when we start working into off leash,
Mm-hmm.
that's different because all of the off leash stuff has to be taught on the leash first.
Right. Okay.
So
That makes
now
sense.
we're starting to learn on that 7th week. Okay, now we're learning how to use an e-collar,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people are just like, crank it up, and when they do the bad thing, hit them with it. That's a shock collar. We don't do that shit. That's fucking evil. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Is there a time for there to be a harsh correction? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But in like the very beginning stages of teaching that shit, you can cause a lot of problems doing that.
Yeah.
So I actually used the e-collar on a very low level
Mm-hmm.
to be pretty close to the lowest perceived level of that dog
Yeah.
at first starting out, which basically feels like a touch.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tell the dog to sit, it touches and it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as their butt hits the ground, it comes off.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be similar as if they had a collar and a leash.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, because it's non-directional, it's a little bit more confusing if they don't already know the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to be slightly pulling down
Okay.
to have them go down, or slightly pulling up to have them sit.
Mm-hmm.
Once they understand all of that stuff, then we start understanding, hey, okay, you know what's up. Do the thing. It often engages like it is a gas pedal, so they start going faster because they understand the behavior. And they typically want whatever reward it is that we are going to give them at the end of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't do that, if they tell me, fuck you, I'm going to go see this squirrel, that's different.
Yeah.
Now accountability has to be held.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to hold the dog accountable for something that it has no idea what the fuck it's supposed to be doing.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
And usually within a 12-week period, we can get a dog completely off leash, able to live its fucking best life,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to do things like, if you tell that dog to go or break it to go sniff shit, and you tell it to come back to you, it's going to.
Mm-hmm.
If you want it to sit way out in that field, you can do that. If you want it to lay down, it can do that at a distance. Or you can call it back to a heel and have it be right next to you until you let it know that it's okay to go, to be released. Unfortunately, I'm going to make this very personal, but if the dog that we were talking about earlier had been told to lay down
Mm-hmm.
and knew that it couldn't break that obedience command, it wouldn't have gotten hit by the car.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm sorry that I have to bring that up.
No, that's fine.
But these things literally can save your dog's life.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, like all of my other dogs are on leash and are not off leash dogs because they didn't have great recall. I didn't take the time to do that with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was the only one that did. And I knew that that was our fault and not the dog's fault. And that we caused that to happen by not telling. Like I said, it was one of those things where we were calling him back and he was coming back whenever he should have stayed there.
Yeah. That's a super, super unfortunate thing. And that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sucks a lot.
Yeah. No. I said, it is definitely our fault and doesn't feel good to know that.
I know.
Yeah. Because that was
No.
my baby.
There is another thing that we haven't talked about. The myths thing.
Mhm.
Not every dog can be saved.
Yeah.
Not every dog can be saved. There's a bunch of people that say it's all in how you raise them. It's not. A lot of it has to do with genetics. And unfortunately, sometimes there are some things that you can't get over.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because sometimes the hardest thing that I have to do is tell somebody, you should put your dog down.
Yeah.
There's been 2.
That sucks. Yeah.
There's been 2 that I've been like, unfortunately, that dog can't be saved.
Yeah. Was it like an aggression situation that they were too aggressive?
So it was aggression from fear.
Mm.
The most recent one was a Chihuahua that the owner could not care for the dog anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody could handle that dog without it literally peeing and pooping everywhere out of fear and trying to bite everybody that was trying to help it.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very old dog. It had lived with this person its entire life. And at that point, if I can't so much as put hands on the dog to just move it from a crate to a kennel or a kennel to a crate, I can deal with having to put a muzzle on it to like do a bath or whatever. But if nobody can get close to that dog without it literally losing its bowels and trying to bite everybody because it has nothing else that it can do, there's not a lot more that we can do with that dog. I can't get it out of the mental state of sheer fight or flight to get it to learn anything.
Right.
And that's hard. And then I've had one other dog that was just had a screw loose. That at a certain point that we could not determine, the dog would just go, I don't fucking like you today. And try to kill the owner.
That's crazy.
Like, totally cool with me. Hanging out, doing stuff. And this was actually before I ever really started pushing business. A little over 2 years ago, I got asked, hey, can you help me with this? And everything with us was fine. Learned how to sit, learned how to down. But there was just something that over the course of from when it was a little puppy of 12 weeks old up until almost being 2 years old, that there was just days where it was like, nope, fuck you. And I'm going to eat you.
Yeah.
Sent the owner to the ER twice.
Jesus. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that was only because they tried it a whole bunch more, but it was successful to put teeth on skin twice.
Yeah.
In a really bad way, more than just a nip. And the last time we're like, we tried.
Yeah.
But we're not getting anywhere. And the husband was the one that the dog bit the first time. The wife was the one the dog bit the second time. And the second time, the wife was pregnant.
Yeah, that's not good.
Now we're possibly putting a kid in that household.
No.
I can't fix that.
Yeah, no. That would be not good. That'd be a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Very.
That's not a game that we want to play.
No. Well, in my head, it kind of goes to the, like, in humans, the nature versus nurture.
It is.
And, like, something that James used to say, and as a kid, he would say that, and you're just like, okay. It's like, some people are just born not good, and some people are just born good, right? And, like, for instance, you talk about your upbringing and how despite it not being super great from, what you were saying, you turned out to, like, in spite of all of that, you turned out to be a great person, right? And, like, my husband did not have the greatest upbringing. And you can look at some of his siblings and how they turned out and then how he chose to live. And it's like they had almost the exact same upbringing. Obviously, everybody lived their own life, so it wasn't 100% the same, right? But same household, same set of rules, and he didn't turn out like any of them. And they've even shown, like, sets of twins being born and separated. And then whenever they totally different parts of the country grew up, and there were certain things like they liked the same drinks, or they had, like they ended up at similar jobs and had still like they had a similar life, even though their upbringing was completely different. Like one was middle class, one was lower class, and how they ended up still living a very similar life.
To even having these same physical mannerisms when they're in public.
Yeah. And so it's just kind of some of that is, I'm sure, the same in animals, right? Like I think a lot of the genetics, it plays a huge role in it.
It's the foundation.
Yeah.
Like that is the foundation that the house is built on. That house is your experiences. There is only so far I can take certain dogs to do certain things. Not every dog can be a sport champion.
Right, yeah.
But with a certain foundation, every dog can attain a certain level.
Yeah.
It's just how much farther are they able to go?
Yeah.
And are you willing to take it?
Well, and I'm going to relate it now to the strength training that I used to do. We always would tell everybody, like, everybody has a different baseline. Everybody has a different, like, max that they can get to. We would say you have a certain max potential, and your max potential is different than mine, different than Shelton's and Tasha's, and everybody's is different. And most of the, like, Olympic athletes that you see, genetically, they are – I mean, for lack of a better term right now, they're better than we are genetically. Like, they are
absolutely
built to do those things, and we're not. So, like, my genetic potential, like, I will never be as strong as some of the women that are in the Olympics, even if I gave it 100%. We could do everything exactly the same, and I'm just not built to do that, and some people are built to do that. And dogs are the same, it seems.
It is. They are. And I'd be willing to bet that, because I've seen families where the father was in special forces, oftentimes those kids, if they join the military, often go to into that same role and are successful in that same role. I'd be willing to bet that if we wanted more Olympic champions, if we bred Olympic champions together, we do the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't
no, we probably shouldn't.
That you shouldn't marry for love and do all that kind of stuff. But you can see where those people would probably go towards.
Yeah. And so we've been kind of comparing, the dogs to the peoples and the things. And you have children, Dakota, and you homeschool those children.
Do.
How much from this have you taken and now used on your children to make them listen and behave like you want them to?
Yes.
All of it? All of the things?
So one of the things that I did for Walmart was actually teaching their people how to do their job.
Okay.
It's why I learned all this stuff, like the 3 different learning types. I didn't even get into processing types and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's why I learned that stuff.
Okay.
But it works in dogs too. It's animal behavior. So if you want something to happen more often, you positively or negatively reinforce it. If you want something to happen less often, you punish it.
Okay.
So if little Jimmy goes out in the woods and finds a stick and starts swinging it around like it's a gun, and I'm like, that's exactly what I used to do. Good job, buddy. He's going to be like, cool, I'm going to do this shit more.
Right.
If I go, put that shit down, come here, sit right here, probably not going to do that next time.
Yeah.
If I want somebody to do a good job at something, you incentivize it. If I don't want them to do that thing, you de-incentivize it.
Right. Okay.
It's the exact same thing.
So I do have a question. What is the difference in the negative reinforcement and punishment? Because in my head, those two things are almost the same.
They're not.
Yeah. So what's the difference in those two?
So negative means to remove access to something.
Okay.
Or to remove something from the environment.
Okay.
So, for example, a leash on a collar is negative reinforcement. It reduces their ability to go away from you.
Okay.
It's negative reinforcement. So this is all based on a theory called operant conditioning. It's a theory from a dude named B.F. Skinner. If you've ever heard of a Skinner box, that is this. But reinforcement means to make a behavior more likely to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Punishment means to make a behavior less likely to happen. So it was originally done in rats.
Mm-hmm.
My nerd is showing, I know. It was originally done in rats where if the rat pulled a lever, it would get food. So the rat would pull the lever a whole lot. And then it got to the point where they were like, okay, now it only happens when the light comes on. So you condition the rat when the light comes on, you pull the lever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you punish when it happens without the light coming on by electromagnetic grid. Not electromagnetic, an electric grid.
Mm-hmm.
So if they pull the lever and the light's not on, they feel a shock.
Mm.
So as soon as the light comes on, cool, food. Don't touch it if the light's not on.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Negative punishment is a little bit different, and it's probably one of the harder ones for people to understand. And quite frankly, I am not near as good with it as I would like to be.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that are really, really good with it, but I use it in certain things, in bite work in particular, where if a dog is not committed
Mm-hmm.
to the actual bite and staying into that thing, but I know that they like to do the thing, we will remove access to that
Okay.
as a punishment. So dog comes up, bites, and they immediately let go. And I go away and they go get put up.
Mm.
No, you didn't do the right behavior. You don't get a reward for it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because biting and playing with that thing
Mm-hmm.
is a reward.
Right.
They love doing that thing. At least my dogs do.
Yeah.
Shrek, that's his favorite thing.
He's like, this is my favorite.
It is. It is. Absolutely is. And as soon as my 11-year-old daughter tells him to watch somebody, he goes off. He's like, this is what we train for! I hope I didn't peak the mic too much on that.
Sheldon will fix it.
Hopefully. I'm sorry, Sheldon. I know I'm making more work for you. But if he was not like that, it would just go away.
Right. Okay.
I've removed it.
Yeah.
And now he's like, fuck. And we put him away for a little bit, and we bring him back out. And almost every time, the next engagement is like, I fucking lost it last time. I'm not losing it this time. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And just done.
Okay.
And we're like, yes. And then he gets all of the praise. And we positively reinforce that. So he gets to play the game, however it is that we are reinforcing it. Whether it is, okay, I get to bite the thing. He gets pets while he's on the bite. Like all sorts of different stuff can be involved in that.
Right.
But understanding how those quadrants work is the key to making your training black and white, because there's a very clear line of this the dog perceives as punishment, and this the dog perceives as reinforcing. And unfortunately for us, which is what makes it a little bit complicated, is that the dog is the one that gets to choose that.
Okay.
So there are some dogs that if I grab them by their flank while they're on a bite, they're like, oh shit, and they let go. And then there are some dogs that's like, as soon as they feel that pain, they're like, fuck yeah!
Okay, yeah.
And they get more amped up by it. And you will see a similar thing with humans. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are some people and some dogs that are more spicy than others.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And that's what they're into.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Well, and I feel like at least with my children, there are certain positive reinforcements that I can give them. Like if I tell Amaya, like, hey, you can have extra TV time or something, right? Like she might not give a fuck about that at all.
Right.
Where one of the boys who they want to play their games, so extra screen time is way more important to them. You know what I mean? So it is what is considered positive is going to be really different for each of the kids.
Right.
Because they each care about something different.
Right. Going back to the homeschooling thing and using that as a tool, okay, what are they interested in?
Mm-hmm.
So my son, he wants to do anything that is involved with being outside, video games, or something physical. If it's like spinning around and doing shit like a ninja, he's fucking yes, that.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Wants to pretend to be a samurai, that. Right? Go out in the woods and shoot guns or pretend shoot guns, that.
Yeah.
Right? We taught him his numbers so that he understood them well with Minecraft.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
So like he was like, okay, I'm trying to build this thing. I need this many blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day he was like, dang it, I've only got 3 torches.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, yeah, you've only got 3 torches. What does that mean? He goes, it means I can only put these here. I need to make more. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, we can work with that.
Yeah.
And then we started turning that into ABCs.
Mm-hmm.
Like at 4 years old, this
Yeah.
is what we were doing.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, what is that letter? It's an A. Cool. Go burn that shit down. Yes!
Yeah.
Right? We're making blocks out of TNT and letting him fucking hit buttons and blow shit up.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's great.
This is the best.
Right. Where my daughter, she'd be like,
She'd be like, whatever.
what are you doing? Just like tell me the thing.
Yeah.
She prefers social communication.
Yeah.
More than my son does. My son wants to blow shit up, and my daughter wants to make bonds with people.
Yeah. Yeah. None of my kids really care too much about blowing stuff up. Bane really likes video games, so whenever we were teaching him to read, we turned everything into a game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so very similar. We would make games, and the only one I can remember right now, it was one of the first ones I came up with, it was tiles on out here on the shop. We have the tiles, and we would number the tiles. And like if he got so many right, we would go so many forward, and it was almost like a board game map, you know.
Okay.
And the key was that you had to like get to the destination, right? And so we would have the letters, and he would have to know them, and it would let him move and do different things. And it was super fun. He loved it. He would get to the end, and it was great.
And eventually he gets to a reward event.
Yeah.
Where he gets whatever the hell it is that he wanted, that he was promised.
Yep. So we had to do games.
I get that.
Yeah.
100% I understand that.
Which my other kids, we didn't. They were already in public school. We didn't get to homeschool them when they first started reading and stuff. That's the hard part. To me, it gets a little easier after that. Because now they know how to read, they know how to write, they can add and subtract, and everything is just built off of that. So. So, Dakota, that about wraps up everything that I had to talk about with you today. And so if you want, tell the people where to find you, what you got going on, just anything that all the details, the Instas and the Facebooks and the things.
Everything is Better Built Dogs. I don't have shit branding. It's Better Built Dogs. It's going to have this logo or me with my German Shepherd Fiona. From when we first started this journey, I had some really cool pictures that I still really, really enjoy that occasionally I'll use on certain things. If you need training or your dog needs training, because I am training people to train their dog the vast majority of the time, you can get a hold of me on my website or on Instagram or TikTok, or look it up, Better Built Dogs on Google, and you can call me. I'm very easy to get a hold of. If it is a board and train situation that you want to have happen, which means the dog comes to me for a certain period of time and goes back, one, that's a lot more expensive. It's a lot more of my time, which is why it's a lot more expensive. But that is an option. But we need to have a whole lot of communication for that prior. So give me a call for that. If you are looking to purchase a dog, I also do dog sales, primarily German Shepherds. And I have access to some of the best breeders in the country all of the time. You don't have to get a dog from Europe. You can get a very well-bred German Shepherd here if you know what you're looking for. And most people don't. So let me know, and I'll help that for you. I'll help you with that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with me today.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Look forward to doing it next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.